The first few years, many of our meetings were in a windowless space in the Appalachian Mountain Club on Beacon Hill. It was one of the spaces that was open to having our meetings there. This was the time in the mid-'80s when, despite being in Massachusetts, many people did not feel comfortable in going to much more public spaces. When I joined the board as a secretary in '85, we had to maintain the membership list with pretty high secrecy because of so many people fearing that they could lose their jobs and certainly their reputations because of being out.
My mentor, Alec Gray, got me involved in MLGBA. I was, as a law student and then as a new lawyer, I was able to meet him and his partner, John. I met folks like Rob Quinnen and his husband, Steve, and my husband, Chad, and I would go to his house and really got to know Alec.
When I became a student representative to the board, Chick Wagner was a fantastic mentor to me. And I think that those kinds of mentoring relationships are really important to continue to cultivate, both to help folks become involved in and navigate through MLGBA and the legal community more broadly.
Vicki Henry, first and foremost. She was one of the co-chairs when I came onto the board, and you know, she's just very thoughtful, very kind, so wise. And she's gone on to, in my professional life, been a mentor to me as a lawyer. You know, you can always call on her. She's just so generous with her time in whatever capacity. Joyce Kaufman, she was co-chair of MLGBA when I was a law student. So I remember her way back when, her shock of gray and white hair, and thinking, you know, I've got to get to know this woman. She's something.
Joyce Kaufman, for sure, just trailblazing left and right. Just on the front of our community all the time.
I think every board member has mentored me in some way, every even law student member. I think I learned from every person I you know, come in contact with MLGBA. It sounds cheesy, but it's true. And I can always call on them, which is nice if you're lost. MLGBA over time has been just a great connection. You know, from a law student to a lawyer, it has kind of been with me, grown with me. You know, I feel like any MLGBA member you go up to, you say, oh, I'm an MLGBA member too, they want to talk to you. And I think the power of that is really outstanding.
I tell you, one of the best aspects of my involvement in MLGBA as a law student is I got to see LGBT attorneys in action with spouses, getting married, living their lives fully. And coming from North Carolina, I didn't see that. And you can't underestimate the power of that. And so for me as a law student, being immersed in LGBT rights issues as we were at Northeastern Law, I actually got to see it in practice, in real life, by a Vicki Henry and her wife and her kids. That speaks volumes. It's not just what we're fighting for on paper. It's how we live our lives. And that I got to see firsthand because of MLGBA.
The first dinner, what a wonderful event. We all got together, we were all dressed up, and there was even dancing after the dinner. It was a wonderful, great start to a great tradition. It was a little disconcerting at the end of the dinner when we saw the wait staff start to clean up and notice that they donned pretty heavy latex gloves. Remember that this is in the middle of the AIDS crisis when there was so much misinformation and ignorance about the transmission of HIV. And it was unfortunate. It was an unfortunate vision for us to have, but one that probably we weren't surprised to see. What a difference it has been. When that first dinner occurred, we had a hard time finding a venue that would take a lesbian and gay bar association, and now we have a wonderful space to enjoy ourselves.
I think the funniest memorable moment is when we got the president of the Massachusetts Bar Association to say manhunt in front of 500 people in the middle of the first dinner that Christina and I were co-chairs of.
And who can forget the comic routine from the 20th anniversary? There were many jaws on the floor by the end of that routine, I can say.
For me personally, it was introducing Mary Bonato at our annual dinner, and we asked the audience to help us sing her up on stage, and we had changed the words to the Mary Tyler Moore Show and had the words distributed out on all the tables. And that was unplanned in terms of the rest of the audience, so I didn't really know for sure how the membership would support that. But I have to say, this is a group that can carry a tune and really knows the Mary Tyler Moore Show theme song well. I still love that, with each brief and every little motion you show it. And going on to Love Is All Around, Now We Can Marry. So that was, for me personally, that was a lot of fun.
One of the founding ideas of having an MLGBA organization was to provide a way for judges to be out, judicial applicants to be out on their resume. And it was one of our first educational meetings was to have the Governor's Legal Counsel come to an MLGBA meeting and talk about the judicial nominating process and encouraging applications. And it led eventually to the nomination and appointment of Dermot Marr and Linda Giles, who were the first two, and very proud MLGBA longtime members and founders.
One of the other big memories was when the Mass Bar Association decided to give John Rogers its Legislator of the Year award. And at that point he was very anti-marriage equality, and we as a board were outraged. So we went through our process of both feeling our outrage and trying to figure out what we were going to do about it. And I remember in particular the women of the board we'd had enough. And so we started with the idea of a protest, and then Joe just really was tapped to lead that, and he channeled all that feeling that we were having and really had picketers out and really made our voice heard.
I attended the MLGBA law student reception my first year as a student at Northeastern, and met just wonderful people, and just got very excited that there was an organization that not only was fighting for LGBT rights, but was living those rights and was living that out. And it just got me excited about being part of that organization, part of that history, and part of that fight. It was, it was right before the marriage decision, and it was a critical time, and it was just an energetic time.
When Goodrich was about to issue, I was on maternity leave. And the funny thing about Goodrich issuing was that John Affuso was quite near my house on jury duty at the West Roxbury Courthouse, so he was only about a mile away. And we, of course, all got the announcement that Goodrich would issue that day, but we didn't know what the ruling was going to be. So he's on the phone telling me where he is, and he's trying to basically explain to the woman who's in charge of the jury pool that, a decision was about to issue that would affect his people. He needed to go be ready for whatever it was. So it took a while for him to get excused from jury duty, but we went and got him, and then we're all waiting at my house with the two small children waiting for the decision to issue, and then when the decision did finally issue, jumping immediately to the conclusion of the majority opinion to see what the outcome was.
I also remember the night that Goodrich came down and going to the Old South Meeting House and seeing the speakers and seeing Joyce Kaufman there, and just the feeling of total joy.
It was John Affuso's last term as the male co-chair, and the rest of us were all on vacation in Key West. And imagining in the middle of the first Constitutional Convention, 20 guys in a hot tub in Key West, all huddled around my cell phone getting play-by-play reports from John Affuso, who was in the first row of the gallery, keeping essentially most of the United States now up to date minute by minute as to the status of our marriage equality.